Dr. Samuel Johnson. Samuel Johnson, a renowned English writer and critic, was a prominent literary figure in the 18th century, best known for his monumental work, The Dictionary of the English Language. His biography, Life of Samuel Johnson, by James Boswell, is celebrated as a masterpiece of biographical literature. Born in Lichfield, Staffordshire in 1709, Johnson's father was a bookseller. He received his education at Lichfield Grammar School and briefly attended Oxford University, but had to leave due to financial constraints. His struggle to establish a career led him to London. In London, Johnson initially grappled with financial difficulties and took on various writing assignments. Over time, he built a reputation as a writer and was commissioned by printers to compile the groundbreaking Dictionary of the English Language, a monumental task that took 8 years to complete. The dictionary, published in 1755, became a seminal work in the English language. Johnson's personal life saw challenges, including the loss of his wife in 1752. He later welcomed Francis Barber, a formerly enslaved man from Jamaica, into his household, along with his family. Throughout his life, Johnson produced a diverse body of work, including his biography of Mr. Richard Savage, poems like London and The Vanity of Human Wishes, the play Irene, and the philosophical work Rasselas or Prince of Abyssinia. He also wrote essays, annotated Shakespeare's plays, and authored the lives of the poets. Johnson faced financial difficulties despite the success of his dictionary until he was granted a government pension in 1762. His friendship with James Boswell, a young Scottish lawyer, led to the publication of Boswell's Life of Johnson in 1791, which greatly contributed to Johnson's fame. In 1773, Johnson and Boswell embarked on a tour of Scotland, resulting in travel accounts from both writers. Johnson was a central figure in London's literary circles, counting notable figures like Joshua Reynolds, Edmund Burke, Oliver Goldsmith, and David Garrick among his friends. His close relationship with Henry Thrale, a wealthy brewer and member of parliament, and Thrale's wife Hester became an essential part of his life. Samuel Johnson passed away on December 13, 1784, and he is interred at Westminster Abbey. His lasting contributions to English literature, including the dictionary and biographical writings, continue to be celebrated and studied today. London. London is one of Samuel Johnson's earliest published poems, written in 1738, shortly after his move to the city. It consists of 263 lines and is heavily influenced by the Roman poet Juvenal's third satire, with Johnson adopting the character of Thales as he contemplates leaving London for Wales. This poem reflects the 18th century trend, led by poets like Alexander Pope, of imitating classical poets, especially for new poets making their debut in published verse. The poem was initially published anonymously and went through multiple editions in 1738. It received rapid critical acclaim, including praise from Alexander Pope himself. Johnson's penchant for imitating Juvenal and his political undertones contributed to the poem's recognition. The poem delves into various issues plaguing London, such as crime, corruption, and the hardships faced by the poor. These abstract problems are personified as malevolent beings seeking to wreak havoc on the city. Characters like Malice, Rapine, and Accident are depicted as conspirators targeting London's inhabitants. The poem begins with the narrator expressing mixed feelings about Thales's decision to leave London. Thales, possibly representing Johnson's friend Richard Savage, is leaving the city for a quieter life in Wales. The poem then explores the idea that worth and virtue often struggle to thrive in the midst of poverty and adversity. The poem concludes with the narrator's departure from London, symbolizing a retreat from the city's vices and follies. The narrator hopes that, like himself, others will also turn away from vice and contribute to virtuous causes. Johnson's London is a notable early work, but he would later achieve greater renown for works like The Vanity of Human Wishes, his dictionary, biographical writings, and contributions to periodicals. Life of Mr. Richard Savage. Samuel Johnson's Life of Mr. Richard Savage, published in 1744, marked a significant milestone in Johnson's literary career, as it was his first notable biography. This work, sometimes referred to as Life of Savage, provides an account of the tumultuous life of Richard Savage, a London poet and a close friend of Johnson, who had passed away in 1743. The biography was initially published anonymously and delved into the life story of Richard Savage, including his controversial and often tragic experiences. One of the central claims in the biography was Savage's assertion that he was the illegitimate child of a noble family who had disowned and abandoned him from birth. Savage's life was filled with controversies and challenges, and Johnson used this material not only to chronicle Savage's life but also to explore broader ethical questions. While the biography was a standalone work, it later found its place in Johnson's comprehensive collection, The Lives of the Poets, published in 1779. This collection played a pivotal role in establishing Johnson as a prominent biographer in his later years. Life of Savage received acclaim from its contemporary readers and critics, contributing to Johnson's early recognition as a literary figure. This acclaim has endured over 2 centuries, with the biography often described as one of the finest short biographies in the English language. It's important to note that while the work is a biography, it presents a partial account of Savage's life, primarily as narrated by a close friend. It includes some factual inaccuracies, notably accepting Savage's claim of noble lineage despite limited evidence. Nevertheless, Johnson's portrayal of Savage does not gloss over his flaws. Johnson candidly exposes the many imperfections of Savage's character and life while maintaining an underlying belief that Savage was unjustly treated throughout his life and deserving of admiration. The Vanity of Human Wishes. Samuel Johnson's poem, The Vanity of Human Wishes, the 10th satire of Juvenal imitated, was composed in the late 1740s and published in 1749. It holds significance as the first work to bear Johnson's name on the title page and serves as an imitation of Satire X by the Roman poet Juvenal. However, unlike Juvenal's scathing satire, Johnson's poem takes a more sympathetic approach to its subjects. While Johnson's poem does address the theme of human futility and the pursuit of greatness, it differs from Juvenal by emphasizing the importance of Christian values for leading a proper life. This poem marked Johnson's second attempt at imitating Juvenal following his earlier work, London. Unlike London, which had a strong political focus, The Vanity of Human Wishes leans more toward philosophical contemplation. The poem consists of 368 lines written in closed heroic couplets, and its central message revolves around the idea that the world and worldly pursuits ultimately fail to offer genuine or lasting satisfaction. Johnson suggests that the antidote to futile human desires lies in non-vain spiritual aspirations. Although the poem did not achieve significant financial success upon its publication, it garnered praise from later critics and literary figures. Walter Scott, T.S. Eliot, and others considered it one of Johnson's greatest works. Howard D. Wainwright described it as one of the great poems in the English language, emphasizing its enduring impact and significance. In the context of Johnson's poetic career, The Vanity of Human Wishes marked a shift from political concerns to broader philosophical exploration, distinguishing it from his earlier work, London. It stands as a testament to Johnson's versatility and his ability to engage with profound themes through poetry. Irene. Irene is a neoclassical tragedy written by Samuel Johnson between 1726 and 1749. Despite being Johnson's only play, it is often regarded as his greatest failure. The play was first performed on February 6, 1749, in a production organized by David Garrick, Johnson's friend and former pupil. While it initially enjoyed commercial success, it was never revived during Johnson's lifetime and remained largely unsuccessful in subsequent productions until 1999. The plot of Irene is based on historical events. In the play, the Sultan Mahomet conquers Constantinople in 1453 and captures a Greek Christian named Irene. He offers her a deal. If she converts to Islam, he will spare her life and grant her power at his court. Irene accepts the offer, forsaking her religious faith. However, the pursuit of worldly power corrupts her. The story unfolds as Irene becomes embroiled in a power struggle among Mahomet's advisors, including the first vizier Kali Basa, the Aga Mustafa, and the officer Abdallah, who harbors unrequited love for Aspasia, Irene's virtuous friend. Mahomet suspects Irene and Basa of plotting against him. Eventually, Irene is killed by 2 of Abdallah's captains. However, with her dying words, she reveals that the true conspirator is the Greek soldier Demetrius, who is in love with Aspasia. Demetrius and Aspasia escape safely. Upon learning that Irene was not involved in the conspiracy, Mahomet is devastated. The play explores themes of temptation, the corrupting influence of power, and the consequences of forsaking one's principles for personal gain. Despite its initial success, Irene is widely considered a theatrical failure and is not typically associated with Johnson's more renowned works. Johnson's Dictionary. A dictionary of the English language, commonly known as Johnson's Dictionary, was authored by Samuel Johnson and published on April 15, 1755. It holds a prominent place in the history of the English language as one of the most influential dictionaries. The need for a comprehensive dictionary arose from dissatisfaction with existing dictionaries of the time. In June 1746, a group of London booksellers hired Samuel Johnson to write a new dictionary for the substantial sum of 1,500 guineas, which would be equivalent to approximately £250,000 in 2022. Johnson initially claimed he could complete the dictionary in 3 years, but it took him 7 years to finish the monumental work. He undertook the task single handedly, with only clerical assistance for copying illustrative quotations from various books. Johnson produced several revised editions of the dictionary during his lifetime. For 173 years following its completion, Johnson's dictionary held the position of the preeminent English dictionary until the publication of the Oxford English Dictionary. According to Walter Jackson Date, the dictionary stands as one of the greatest single achievements of scholarship and probably the greatest ever performed by one individual who labored under anything like the disadvantages in a comparable length of time. The contents of a dictionary of the English language encompassed a comprehensive history of the English language, a grammar section, and an extensive list of words representing fundamental general vocabulary. The vocabulary was drawn from the best conversational language in contemporary London and the typical usage of respected writers. In addition to the original edition, Johnson published an abbreviated one-volume version in 1756, which remained widely used well into the 20th century. Johnson's remarkable accomplishment lay in creating a dictionary that incorporated the prevailing ideals and resources of European lexicography, utilizing his intellectual prowess and linguistic skill. His dictionary set the standard for English dictionaries until the publication of Noah Webster's in 1828. Rasselas. The history of Rasselas, Prince of Abyssinia, often simply referred to as Rasselas, is a philosophical apologue penned by Samuel Johnson. Originally titled The Prince of Abyssinia, A Tale, the work was published in April 1759 in England. It is notable for its blend of philosophical and practical themes, making it challenging to categorize purely as a novel. The story revolves around several key characters. Rasselas, the son of the king of Abyssinia, who is confined to the Happy Valley until his succession to the throne. Imlac, a philosopher and son of a merchant, who explores the Happy Valley only to discover its emptiness. Nicaea, Rasselas' sister and travel companion. Pekua, Nicaeus' attendant. The master, one of Rasselas' teachers who attempts to encourage contentment in the Happy Valley. The Bassa, a high-ranking official in the Ottoman Empire who fails to aid his subjects effectively. The engineer, a person whose mechanical knowledge intrigues Rasselas, particularly his attempt to create a flying contraption. The astronomer, a solitary scholar who believes he can control the weather, but regains his senses after a visit from Pekua and Nicaea. The narrative begins with Rasselas, the fourth son of the Abyssinian king, confined to the Happy Valley until he ascends to the throne. However, he grows wary of the artificial amusements and decides to escape. Alongside his sister Nicaea, her attendant Pekua, and the philosopher Imlac, they embark on a journey to explore the world and search for happiness in places like Cairo and Suez. Their travels expose them to various aspects of society, but they soon realize the futility of their quest for happiness. Disheartened by their unfulfilled hopes, they return to Abyssinia. The story is episodic in nature and is characterized by Johnson's slow, musical prose style. According to Jorge Luis Borges, the work reflects Johnson's emotional state at the time, particularly his contemplation of his beloved mother's death, resulting in a melancholic yet harmonious narrative. Preface to Shakespeare. Johnson's Preface to Shakespeare is a comprehensive essay that explores various aspects of William Shakespeare's literary works. It encompasses four main components. Number 1, Shakespeare's greatness. Johnson begins by discussing Shakespeare's unparalleled greatness, particularly in his portrayal of human nature. He highlights Shakespeare's ability to capture the complexities of the human experience, making his works timeless. Number 2, Shakespeare's faults or weaknesses. Johnson acknowledges that even Shakespeare had flaws or weaknesses in his writing. He does not hesitate to critique some aspects of Shakespeare's works, demonstrating a balanced and honest assessment. Third, Shakespeare's place in relation to contemporary poetry and drama. Johnson contextualizes Shakespeare's place within the broader landscape of contemporary poetry and drama. He explores how Shakespeare's works compare to those of his peers and predecessors. And number 4, History of Shakespearean Criticism and Editing. Johnson provides a historical overview of the criticism and editing of Shakespeare's works up to the mid 18th century. He discusses the evolving perspectives on Shakespeare and the challenges faced by editors. Johnson's motivation for undertaking this project was partly financial, but he also recognized the significance of contributing to the understanding and appreciation of Shakespeare's works. His edition of Shakespeare's plays was published in 1765 as The Plays of William Shakespeare in 8 volumes, to which are added notes by Samuel Johnson. It quickly sold out, leading to subsequent editions and revisions. In the preface, Johnson explores the enduring appeal of Shakespeare's works, emphasizing that they continue to be valued for their ability to provide pleasure and entertainment. He recognizes that Shakespeare's writings have transcended their original context and are now enjoyed purely for the pleasure they offer, rather than for any specific agenda or message. Overall, Johnson's preface to Shakespeare serves as a valuable piece of literary criticism and commentary that sheds light on both Shakespeare's genius and the evolving appreciation of his works over time. Lives of the English Poets. Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets by Samuel Johnson is a collection of biographies and critical assessments of 52 poets, primarily from the 18th century. Johnson initially conceived it as a short prefatory notices, but expanded it into a comprehensive work covering various poets' lives and works. Johnson's last major work, the project started with the idea of providing brief lives and prefaces for an edition of English poets. However, it grew significantly in scope. Johnson was initially approached by London booksellers in 1777 to contribute to this project, and he agreed, given his fondness for anecdotes and biography. The project eventually expanded to include extensive prefaces and a substantial number of poets totaling 56 volumes. Johnson was initially displeased with his name appearing on the book spines because he had not recommended or revised most of these poets, except for a few additions like Isaac Watts, Sir Richard Blackmore, John Pomfret, Thomas Yalden, and James Thomson. The biographies in lives of the most eminent English poets are organized chronologically based on the poet's date of death. They vary in length, ranging from a few pages to entire volumes. Johnson wrote notable biographies of poets such as Abraham Cowley, John Milton, John Dryden, Joseph Addison, and Alexander Pope. He also produced striking biographies of lesser-known poets like William Collins and William Shenstone. Johnson's opinions of the poets he wrote about sometimes differed from his views on their poetry. For example, he admired William Collins as a person but disapproved of his poetic style. His biography of Alexander Pope was the longest and arguably the best, as Pope's life provided ample biographical material and Johnson found his poetry congenial. Johnson employed a structured approach in his biographies, typically consisting of 3 parts: a narrative of the poet's life, a presentation of their character, and a critical assessment of their main poems. He chose this approach to highlight that a poet's moral character did not necessarily determine their poetic prowess. Johnson's method allowed him to acknowledge that a poet's life and work might not always align. He emphasized moral lessons in his biographical accounts, chastising failings and commending virtue. While he responded favorably to poets like Dryden and Pope, he was skeptical of poets from his own generation, such as Gray, Collins, and Shenstone, though he admired Gray's An Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. In summary, Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets is a significant work by Samuel Johnson, providing biographical insights and critical assessments of a wide range of poets from the 18th century. It reflects Johnson's moral perspective on poetry and the complex relationships between poets' lives and their creative works.